It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the week before Christmas. And we got 4 big new movies to look at here, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. And as I said before, it was the week before Christmas, and all throughout the movies, not a creature was stirring except for one little mouse, and that little mouse is Stuart Little.
On a perfectly ordinary street, in this perfectly ordinary house, the Little family
It's today!
is about to do
Remember, I want a little brother, not a big brother.
something perfectly extraordinary.
Mr. and Mrs. Little, we try to discourage couples from adopting children outside their own species.
Mom, Dad, I'm home.
This holiday season, Columbia Pictures and the co-director of The Lion King invite you to meet
Stuart.
Whoa!
Snowball, drop him right now.
You spit Stuart out this instant, Snowbell. Spit him right out. We do not eat family members.
Stuart Little.
A mouse with a pet cat.
Coming this December.
Yes, I did all that just for that one little joke, but I digress. This is the big screen adaptation of E.B. White's best-selling children's book of the same name. Centers around a family known as the Littles. You would happen to think of them as the nicest family to ever meet. One day, the parents, Frederick and Eleanor, played by Hugh Laurie and Gina Davis, both parents and Littles, go to an orphanage to find a brother for their son George, played by Jonathan Lipnicki. While there, they meet Stuart, played by Michael J. Fox, a small but charming mouse who apparently is human civilized. They adopt him, and everyone, even George, loves him, but there's one problem with Stuart's life, and that's Snowbell, the family cat, played by Nathan Lane, who wants him, but when trouble starts up almost immediately, Stuart must make his way back to his home before Snowball's friends find out about him. And, if you read the story for Stuart, if you actually read the Stuart Little stories, you know that this is actually not exactly what the books really go into. I think the books actually are a lot more, they go into much more of a deeper storyline than I think you would be led on just by that trailer alone. I mean, this one just feels like it kind of just takes the route that you would expect for a film like this to take. It's just a small story about this little kid, about this little mouse that ends up becoming a part of this family, and he has to find ways to, he has to basically survive life with this cat around, and basically all the cats in this town clearly want to eat him, even though this is one of those weird stories, kind of like with Twee's High Flying Adventure. Like, they all want this one little creature, and all the other birds and all the other mice in these movies are probably thinking to themselves, thank you, pal, because, like, they really do not care about any of the other mice in this movie, except for this one little mouse who's in the middle of this family. But yeah, it's a fun little movie. It's a film I went to go see when I was little. I never read the books before, so I just saw it straight from the movie itself. I never knew about the books until afterwards, but it's a perfectly solid film. It's a film that definitely delivers everything it promises. Gina Davis, Hugh Laurie, and Jonathan Lipnicki are very good as the family. Michael J. Fox is very good as Stuart Little. Nathan Lane's very good in here. A brilliant cast overall here. A lot of great names in here. Jeffrey Jones, Alice Beasley from Moonlighting and Recess, Brian Doyle Murray, Estelle Getty, Jim Dugan, John Polito, Julia Sweeney. The voice cast includes Chaz Palminteri and Steve Zahn, David Alan Grier, Jennifer Tilly's also in here, Bruno Kirby. I mean, they have a really good cast in this movie, and you probably didn't even notice it until, if you looked real close at the credits, you'll know that this film was co-written by one M. Night Shyamalan, who had broken out earlier in the year with The Sixth Sense, and again, never had any idea that he actually had a hand in writing the script for this, and you really couldn't tell because there's no big twist in this movie like it would be for a film. And imagine M. Night Shyamalan doing a family film with a twist nowadays. But in this movie, no, it's just a regular script from him, which is very interesting to point out here. It's also very important to also note out that Rob Minkoff, this is his live-action debut after directing The Lion King, and I believe he did the second one too, and then he did a couple other movies, The Haunted Mansion and The Forbidden Kingdom, and then he eventually went back to animation with Mr. Peabody and Sherman, and more recently, Paws of Fury: The Legend of Hank. So, for him, this is an attempt to see what he could do as a live-action director. You know, this is something that probably he never tackled before up to this point, but he made it a success. He made a successfully fun, entertaining movie with a sequel that's just as enjoyable, too. We'll eventually get to that when we get to 2002, but this is a really good film. I'd highly recommend checking it out. Yeah, it's not the same as the book itself, but it's still a ton of fun. It's still a well-made film. It's a really good film. I really do recommend checking it out. So that's Stuart Little. So let's go ahead and move on to our next film, and that is Robin Williams in Chris Columbus's Bicentennial Man.
Found him.
It is a household appliance.
Andrew is just a machine.
And yet you act like it is a man.
But on December 17th,
One wishes to have more expression.
he'll show the world what he's really made of.
I am trying to make something of myself. I am trying to fulfill my destiny. How's it going?
Robin Williams,
Andrew?
Yes.
He's had an upgrade.
Bicentennial Man.
Kiss me.
No.
No?
No.
Rated PG. Special sneak preview tonight.
The marketing for this movie really does not sell the true enjoyment of what this movie is about. You basically have a story here based off of a story by Isaac Asimov. Actually, two stories by Isaac Asimov. One of them one of them is The Bicentennial Man. The other is The Positronic Man, written by him and Robert Silver, which of itself is based off of Asimov's original 1976 novel of the same name. And the plot basically centers around issues of humanity, slavery, prejudice, maturity, intellectual freedom, conformity, sex, love, mortality, and immortality. And you have a story with Robin Williams playing this robot, and as time goes on and realizes that this robot can basically move on his own, he needs to figure out his purpose in life. And sure enough, as time goes on, he eventually becomes a human being, and he realizes that he needs to learn about humanity and all that. In a way, it kind of reminds me a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit of that not as memorable Andy Kaufman movie from the 1980s, Heartbeats, which is, at the time, was heavily panned by critics, much like this movie was, but over time it has gone to have a little bit of a following to it. And I think people are slowly but surely coming around to this particular film because it really did not get the best reviews when it came out. Everyone kind of looked at this and thought, oh, here goes Robin Williams with another bomb. But yeah, it unfortunately was a box office bomb, but really, it's a really good movie. And the trailers, I think, did a huge mistake of trying to sell this as a somewhat goofy comedy. This is a very serious, more dramatic storyline. And I think it does a very good job of handling that. This is one of Robin Williams' more underrated performances. And I thought he did a very good job in this film. The cast overall is great here. You've got Sam Neill, Embeth Davidtz, Hallie Eisenberg, the Pepsi Girl, Wendy Crewson, Oliver Platt, Stephen Root, Bradley Whitford, John Michael Higgins, George Wallace, Lynn Thigpen. Just a really phenomenal cast working on this film. And I think it did a very good job of taking a story that really has more to it than I think a lot of people let on. I mean, it is a little bit of a comedy and a little bit of a drama at times, but the dramatic elements, I think, work better here than in movies where Robin Williams was trying to play it too seriously, like stuff like like Jacob the Liar, or even Last Christmas, he had Patch Adams, which is a horrible, horrible movie. But this movie is at least much better. I mean, I think this delivers what Patch Adams should have done. I think this is a very good job of handling a story about basically coming into your own and trying to figure out your purpose in life. And it's a really well-made film. The visual effects on Robin Williams' makeup is really impressive. They did a pretty good job of making Robin Williams look like a robot and having him look like he's actually there. I mean, it doesn't look like he's on a green screen anywhere. He looks like he's right there, and I think they did a really good job of handling that. I love this movie. It's a very underrated gem. I think it's one of Chris Columbus's most underrated films, one of Robin Williams' most underrated movies. It's definitely not like a film like Jacob the Liar or Patch Adams, a movie that's just trying to give you a cheap emotional output. It's actually trying, and I think a lot of people really missed the point when it came out. I am glad to see that it is getting a little bit of a resurgence later on down the road. And this was the last film that Chris Columbus did before he really did take up his career off by directing the first 2 Harry Potter movies. And then that kind of changed his career around a little bit too. But this is a really good film. I highly recommend it. And for him, I should also say, this was a nice return to form for Columbus, because the year before he did Stepmom, which was also a cheap, forced emotional film, an Oscar bait movie, pretty much. But this is a much better film in my personal opinion. I like it. I really like it a lot. I can't recommend it enough. Bicentennial Man. Definitely check it out, because you really will be surprised at how much it actually is better than you think it is. So that's Bicentennial Man. Now let's move on to our next movie, and that is Jodie Foster in Anna and the King.
Oh, look.
She came to a world she did not know.
Have you any friends in Bangkok?
No.
With customs she couldn't understand.
Women do not stand in the presence of His Excellency.
And a king she would never forget. Jodie Foster, Chow Yun-fat, in the movie critics are calling one of the best films of the year. Anna and the King, rated PG-13. Tomorrow only in theaters.
From the same director that created a new spin on Cinderella the year before with Ever After, they try to do the same thing with Anna and the King, basically from the story of Anna and the King of Siam, giving a fictionalized account of the diary of Anna Linolens, played by Jodie Foster, and Chow Yun-fat as the titular King of Siam. And the story here is that you have an English school teacher in Siam during the late 19th century who becomes the teacher of King Mongkut's many children and wives, mostly shot in Malaysia. Basically, another version of The King and I in 1999. We already covered the animated version, which is horribly made, a horrible movie. This one is at least a little bit better, but not by that much. It's trying to take a lot of the elements from the original source material of the Anna and the King of Siam and try to present a different version of The King and I than what we're used to seeing, but it really didn't do as good of a job than I think that I wanted it to do. I mean, it's got beautiful cinematography. It has good people involved in the cast. Foster, Chow Yun-fat as the King of Siam, Bai Ling. Just some good talent all around. Tom Felton later would go on to become Malfoy? Yeah, Malfoy in Harry Potter. It's been a while since I've seen Harry Potter, but it just really didn't have a lot there to really make it something that should be seen. I mean, it has great cinematography, it has great actors involved, but there's just not that much there to really make it something that is as good as it wants to be. Plus, it really doesn't know what kind of a version of the King and I it wants to tell. Even though it's taking from the Anna and the King of Siam novel, it's trying to do some elements from the original Rodgers and Hammerstein show too at the same time, and it can't really figure out the placement of where it wants to go. And in the end, it just kind of feels like a missed opportunity on so many different fronts. It's a film that has a lot of good talent involved in it, but it really does not have a whole lot there to really make it something that you should see. It's a film that has a lot of high ambitions, but just not enough execution for me to recommend it. So, yeah, that's Anna and the King. So let's go ahead and move on to our last film that we have here, and that is Paul Thomas Anderson's follow-up to Boogie Nights, Magnolia.
There are stories of coincidence and chance and intersections and strange things told, and which is which and who only knows. And we generally say, well, if that was in a movie, I wouldn't believe it.
I'm Stanley Spector.
I'm Frank T.J. Mack.
I'm Jimmy Gator. I'm Phil Parma.
I'm Dixon.
I'm Prisca Donnie Smith.
I'm Lily Partridge.
I'm Earl Partridge.
I'm Officer Jim Curring.
Claudia Wilson Gator.
These strange things happen all the time.
Yeah, this is a really bizarre movie. That frog actually plays into some of the more bizarre elements of the film if you haven't seen it. But basically, you have a story that's kind of like an anthology of these different characters who are in search of happiness, forgiveness, and meaning in the San Fernando Valley. And you have a really good cast that includes Tom Cruise, Melinda Dillon, Philip Baker Hall, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Ricky Jay, William H. Macy, Alfred Molina, Julianne Moore, John C. Reilly, the last film for Jason Robards, and Melora Walters. And for Paul Thomas Anderson to follow up Boogie Nights, this is a little too ambitious for his own good. I mean, it's not a bad movie per se. You do like the acting overall here, especially Tom Cruise, which I think this was the film that kind of made people realize that, hey, Tom Cruise can actually be a damn good actor and not just in a bunch of action movies. He actually got nominated for the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in this movie. Unfortunately, he didn't win, but it showed that, I think this movie showed that he has the potential to become one of the great actors that we know him as today. Like, he's a great action star, but he's also a really good actor if you put him in the right stuff, back like he was early on in his career. Direction is not bad, the writing is not bad, the storytelling isn't bad per se. It just runs a little too long. I mean, this is kind of like the Green Mile in a way. Like I said before with the Green Mile, if you have a good enough story to tell, you could make it work. But 3 hours for this is a little too much, and it does teeter on a little bit too much of an Oscar baitish type of movie, a little bit too melodramatic at times, and elements that, like I say, are so weird and bizarre, like the frogs raining down at the end of the movie. I just spoiled it for you, but yeah, when you think frogs falling from, at least when you see that frog in the trailer, my first thought was not frogs falling from the sky and creating havoc all over the place. It gets a little too crazy for its own good, and the movie itself is not bad. It's just a little bit disjointed at times, to a point where it does get a little bit too much of its own good. It has too much. What am I trying to say here? Let me think about what I'm trying to say here. It's trying to provide too much for its own good. I feel like this is a film that Paul Thomas Anderson had more creative control on after the success with Boogie Nights a couple years prior, and he's been given the opportunity to pretty much do whatever he wants to do with a story like this. And for the most part, it works. But then it kind of teeters off into craziness and a little bit too much padding in the second half of the film. It's not a bad movie. It isn't a bad movie by any means necessary, but it's a film that definitely is not another Boogie Nights. It's a film that I think definitely could have been much tighter in terms of like the pacing and the runtime. But other than that, though, there are too many good elements about it that I say that you should see this film. But just don't go into it expecting another Boogie Nights. It's not that good of a film, but it's good enough to say I'd say definitely check it out. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We head to Christmas 1999, the last official week of the 90s, the last official week of the decade. And we've got 9 big movies to talk about, including the Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday, The Talented Mr. Ripley with Matt Damon and Philip Seymour Hoffman, Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman in Man on the Moon, Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, and Sam Rockwell, and a ton of other names you may be familiar with in Galaxy Quest. We also have Angelina Jolie in Girl Interrupted, Angela's Ashes, Snow Falling on Cedars, Titus, Play It to the Bone. 1999's coming out with a bang as we look at 9 films next time around. So it's going to be a very packed episode that we'll get to next time around. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.